Good day. Most people know about the deadly head-on crash of two buses in St. Anne roughly 4 weeks ago. I want to tell you something I think a lot of people don't know about its aftermath. That's just part of the stimulating offering by Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast, episode 35 for this week. Also in the podcast, Chrissy says, don't knock the man for saying cowards are migrating. She says she has never before contemplated it, but now, and Desmond Richards takes on migration too and says it's only the political class that's reaping the fruits and don't need to migrate. You'll hear from them later. But let me start with the untold story behind the traffic crash and the reminder of what it means for you. Yes, whether you had someone involved in that or not, you and the insurance. 4 Sundays ago, on July 24, a terrible traffic crash took place on a stretch of St. Anne Main Road or the North Coast Highway at Landover near Salem, Runaway Bay. A coastal bus with staff from the Electoral Office of Jamaica, EOJ, was heading west toward Montego Bay and crashed into a highest bus with passengers heading east to Ocho Rios from Brownstown. So far, 5 people have died as a result of that traffic crash, and more than a half a dozen of the 24 others injured remain in hospital. The latest to have died is Winston Brown, a 55-year-old tailor from Wattown in St. Anne, with business in St. Anne's Bay. Remember, 2 people died on the scene, including the driver of the highest bus. 2 others died within days, and Mr. Brown died 2 Sundays ago. Frankly speaking, I've not been able to find out if those buses were fully insured to operate as PPV. But even if they are, it should be known that the total payout to the relatives of those killed, that is, relatives of the 5 people killed, and to the injured who survived, would be a maximum of $5 million per bus. We know, of course, that the injuries to many of these people and the short and long-term care that is required would have a bill of more than $10 million each. And we're not talking about the loss of income, failure to any longer support family because of disabilities from the crash. There are all sorts of other things to be considered, of course, when claims are made on insurance companies. But frankly speaking, I want to stay with the figures. A total of 10 million Jamaican dollars is all that could be paid out to everybody who suffered injury and loss and to the relatives of those who died. Frankly speaking, this issue of what happens to the injured and to the families of people who die in traffic crashes is hugely underreported and explored in Jamaica. And some of the reasons may be obvious. But when you see a public passenger vehicle on the road, or when you get into one, you should realize what great jeopardy there is for you or your family to become paupers through a crash. If the breadwinner dies or suffers major injury and hence no longer can carry that role, even if all the $5 million from one PPV vehicle went to that one person, penury will likely be added to pain because the insurance payout at $5 million or less is almost useless. Nobody wants a crash or goes looking for a crash. Nobody is looking for insurance money coming from a crash. But frankly speaking, the fact is that there are needs unplanned for, unanticipated when a crash takes place. And our insurance companies, under the law, are well within the law when they pay out $5 million maximum to the relatives of people killed or people hurt in a crash. There is added money, possible for the vehicle, of course. But, frankly speaking, considering the expenses and the long term care and immediate and medical and other bills that may and do come from a crash, rest assured that the insurance claim will go nowhere near paying the bills of anyone. It must change. The maximum payable by insurance companies must change by law to a realistic figure if there is to be a maximum at all. Of course, frankly speaking, that means premiums would have to be hiked too, and insurance could perhaps not be offered to some now on the road. I haven't even mentioned yet, private vehicles and what the maximum is in those cases. But this almost a sham of comprehensive insurance to a bus taking 15 people or 20 and having a maximum payout of $5 million is disgraceful. And yes, the awful, reckless, dangerous driving on the road needs to be dealt with. Yes, and frankly speaking, the corruption riven policing of the roads centered on speed traps need to change. And I'm coming back to that in another episode. But when people get caught up in traffic crashes, the insurance payout ought not to be such that it will almost certainly make paupers, invalids, they used to say, of so many. Now, here's Chrissy on running away from Jamaica, cowards or not.
Study ranks Jamaica's second highest in human flight and brain drain in the world. And let's not forget that Montego Bay's Deputy Mayor Richard Vernon was dragged all of last week for calling expats cowards. I mean, them literally tongue up on this man like Kersey now. When I saw that story 2 weeks ago, I said this: I wish to never migrate. If I, a bright-minded Jamaican, abandon it, then the road to recovery is that much more rocky. I understand why Montego Bay's Deputy Mayor Richard Vernon called expats cowards in a moment of passion. Frankly, the brain drain in the late 1960s and 70s, denuding Jamaica of the leadership class when our liberal government got communist dollar signs in their eyes, was one of our earlier unfortunate stops rather on the road to hell. That was just a brave face on my real cowardly feelings. What I really want to know is why every youth grow up knowing that the system set up a way. But for the people who migrate/runway, it's just because of the opportunities and the financial structure, just as it was when the brain drain began in the previous century. Why didn't they have those better opportunities at home in Jamaica? I even find myself thinking about migrating for the first time ever because I've stayed and worked hard and paid my taxes and abided by the laws, and the GDP is not recovering. I see the mindset of the majority of the people, and it's a losing mindset. Mr. Mack has to talk himself hoarse over grown adults dropping trash on the roadside. Are you serious? My soul is irritated every time I go to a government office to tolerate blatant incompetence and lack of organization, or see the value of our dollar has gone down even further, that literacy is stagnant. The most heartbreaking nail in the coffin is that I've given up on having love and a family here because Jamaican men are some of the most disloyal, damaging men on this earth. I don't want to spend the rest of my life being humiliated by a man. In accepting that I'll never have a family here, I find myself questioning if I care to stay in Jamaica and fight for a future that my kin won't be a part of. My goddaughter started busting breasts and my knee-jerk reaction was to be scared for her. Then I remembered, and both her mom and I shared the relief that she's in Iceland, not Jamaica. It doesn't sound good, but more than a few people are probably nodding. Why stay for that? Jamaica just makes some of us feel so defeated that we decide to throw in the towel. Just thinking about all that makes me want to pack my bags and enter an arranged marriage with a first worlder. Is it worth staying and fighting for Jamaica's future when I have to give up on my future to do it? The truth is, I should have left when I was younger and had the energy. I'm always tired now, and I don't have the extra time to do anything out of the ordinary because I'm mentally exhausted. My good Sir Vernon, Deputy Mayor, I think I'm about to be one of those cowards. If Jamaica can't even provide me a quality patriarch and safe environment to raise children, there's no great Jamaican nation coming down the pipeline. It's already over.
That's creative and businesswoman Crystal Cameron. And now, Desmond Richards.
Are you surprised by this headline? Low confidence vote in the security forces? Well, I am not. For years I've been preaching that our Jamaican security forces are amongst the most brutal in the region. And the most important point is that their brutal actions are sanctioned by the state. So confidence, low confidence, and then there is talk about this low confidence pose a great threat to law and order. Whose law and order? Whose law and order are they talking about? Until we have the security forces showing respect for the ordinary man and woman in Jamaica, then the law and order that they are talking about is for the rich and powerful. What we want our security forces that show respect for ordinary people. Then there was another breaking news last week. As usual, a member of the political class suffered from a dose of verbal diarrhea, and talking about people who migrate. So this triggered another round of discussion about brain drain. Now, according to the global economy.com, Jamaica has ranked the second in the world for human flight. In other words, Jamaica is on the top flight of countries where the most educated and skilled live. Of course, seeking a better life. That's what we have been migrating. Jamaicans have been migrating for to seek a better life. We went to England after World War, and we continue to go to America and Canada and other places just to seek a better life. And the upside of that, we must remember that remittance is one of the highest sources of foreign exchange in the country. So it is not all that negative. Instead of shooting off their mouths, what the political class should be doing is to ensure that the conditions, social, political, and economic conditions in the country are stable so that people can earn a better life. No, they are not doing that. And as a matter of fact, over the years, the only class that has not migrated is a political class. Members of the political class, they have not migrated because they are the beneficiaries of the fruits of the economic, social, and political fruits in the country. They are the ones who, some of them wake up or go to their beds, paupers, and in the morning they are millionaires. So they don't have to migrate. So instead of shooting and talking nonsense, get down to work after 60 years and make the country more prosperous and habitable for Jamaicans.
That's Desmond Richards, journalist and businessman. I have promised not to leave the story on the need for a well thought out, well executed program of land for the landless in Jamaica. One major end it will serve is to provide a platform for serious action to end squatting, to remove the growing number of people helping to build out chaka chaka ghetto or inner city communities of lawlessness and disorder, comfortable for criminality. Providing titled land in some fresh, some redesigned, already occupied settlements with adequate infrastructure will change the face of Jamaica. Simultaneously, It will give more Jamaicans a stake in the country. It will help to address some of the issues that we chat about and do nothing about every year, such as the migration of teachers, many of them because they are landless and see no way of ever owning a home. The migration of 25,000 Jamaicans every year by fair or foul means, because Jamaica offers them nothing they believe, and they'd rather face racism, cold weather for 4 months, and do any kind of work to help their families rather than stay here without hope, without housing. These issues can be tackled in part, by a resource we have in our hands, land. It requires more than political twaddle about a few thousand houses being built here or there. It requires revolutionary thinking to put off persistent poverty for the majority and to put off the other revolution. That's Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast for this week. Please keep those comments coming to the channel and share the podcast. If you haven't yet done so, please subscribe. And if you have subscribed, encourage those with whom you share and interact to subscribe. I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.